Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good day I back to Dr. Nazhari and Dr. Nurul Ainan Hamzah, our respected lecturer of GTK106 Occupational Health. I am Akmal Safan bin Abrazak, metric number 156682 from Group 5. And Group 5 will be presenting about a topic related to code of practice, which is code of practice on prevention and eradication of drugs, alcohol and substance abuse in the workplace. Abuse of drugs, alcohol and other substances while at work create a risk because it impairs one's ability to do so safely. If a person's ability to exercise judgment, coordination, motor control, concentration and alertness is compromised at work, which increase the risk of injury or illnesses, drugs, alcohol and substance use become an occupational safety and health issue. A worker who is impaired by drugs, alcohol or other substance may pose a risk to himself or others at work. The duty of an employee to not put himself or other in danger is spelled out in Section 24 of the Occupational Safety and Health Acts of 1994. Duties can be divided into two, which are duties of employer and duties of employee. What are the duties and responsibility of an employer? Section 24 of the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1994 mandates that employers create written employee safety and health policy to protect and safety and well-being of his employee. An employer must create a drugs, alcohol and substance abuse policy in accordance with this requirement. To ensure the implementation of policy is successful, an employer should set up an efficient prevention program on drugs, alcohol and substance abuse. What are the duty and responsibility of an employee? A worker has a responsibility to work safely and not to put themselves or others in danger at work, as stated in Section 24 of the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1994. By abstaining from drugs, alcohol and substance abuse at work, the employee should fulfill this obligation in support of employees' responsibility to ensure the safety and health of his employees. An employee should cooperate and take part in the employee's drug, alcohol and substance abuse prevention program. Besides that, an employee should make sure that the effect of his non-work activities won't impair his capacity to complete his work safely at his place of employment. Furthermore, an employee who is present for works should remain fit for works. Moreover, an employee should refrain from drinking alcohol at any employer sponsor or other social event that might compromise his or her own or others' health and safety at works. And lastly, any employee who is incapable of working safely due to drugs, alcohol or substance, you should be reported to the employers by the employee. That's all from me. My friends will be continue our next presentation.
Salam sejahtera and hi everyone. My name is Eugenia Richard and I will be presenting the development of drug, alcohol and substance use policy. First of all, the purpose of establishing a policy is to provide a safe and healthy workplace for all employees, meanwhile to manage the drug and alcohol related issue in the workplace. Secondly, a policy can provide a means of informing the employees about the accepted and unaccepted behavior regarding the use of drug and alcohol. Furthermore, having a policy statement can demonstrate the management commitment in catering and ensuring a safe and healthy workplace. Last but not least, it is a good practice to have such policy even though if drugs and alcohol do not pose a current risk at the workplace. With that, what are the key steps in a policy development? Just like any other safety and health policy, the first step is to establish a committee or representative bodies. This committee would involve of management and employee representative or may use the agency such as the committee to develop the policy. The committee shall be responsible to monitor and oversee the development of policy and related prevention program. The next step after forming a committee is, of course, develop a policy. A policy should be developed through an open and participatory process, along with related procedure and implementation timetable. It is also important for employers to adopt effective communication strategy to ensure regular feedback and consultation from the employees. This approach will give employees a sense of ownership of the policy by making a policy more likely to be accepted and followed at the workplace. And with the feedback from employees, policy, procedures, and implementation should be also devised and amended to suit accordingly. After the final draft of the policy is developed, it shall be presented to management for endorsement and distributed to all employees and persons at the workplace. During the process of developing and reviewing policies and strategies, employers should ensure that the policy is applicable to organization and appropriate to its size and nature of its activity. Hence, employers should identify and assess the risks associated with drugs, alcohol, and substance use in the same way like other occupational safety and health hazards. Here are some of the examples of the risk factors that employers should take into account into the identification and assessment of risk, which can generally be divided into three groups: environmental factor, mental workload, and emotional distress. First, environmental factors such as drugs, alcohol, and substance abuse in the community. For instance, the recreational use of cannabis or cold marijuana is prohibited in most countries, including Malaysia. However, in other communities or countries such as Thailand and Canada, it is legal to possess and consume cannabis. For mental workload, employees may face low job satisfaction and poor working conditions, boring and monotonous jobs. Too stressful or poor supervision could increase the risk of employees taking drugs, alcohol, or substance. Furthermore, emotional distress such as employees may experience isolation from family and friends due to excessive mental workload, stressful job, family issues, or relocated to other places may also factor into increasing risk in taking drugs and alcohol. So what are the content that needed to be included in this policy? The content of policy should comprise of these 7 items, namely rationale of policy is to ensure that a safe and healthy workplace under OSHA 1994, the objective of the policy, the scope of policy that apply to who, the implement of policy that specify disciplinary rules and consequences if employer refuse to undertake a test or under the influence of drug, the implementation of the policy on how the policy and program will take place, grievance mechanism that allow employees to make a complaint on drugs and alcohol-related issue if found wrongful and incorrect accusation. Last but not least is the confidentiality, where employers should ensure all information related to the implementation of the policy as confidential. Here I share an example of a drug and alcohol policy by a company called Deosai Offshore Sdn Bhd. On the first paragraph, it stated that the organization rationale towards maintaining a safe and protective workplace for all employees. The next line shows that the scope of the policy is applied to all employees of the company, followed by its objective, which prohibited use of possession, use or sale of drugs and alcohol on the company premises during working hours. Next, the paragraph clearly expanded on how the organization decided to implement following policy. That the organization will require applicant and safety-sensitive position to take drug testing for pre-employment under reasonable cost, periodic or random, and the test result must test negative for the presence of controlled substances such as marijuana, cocaine, amphetamines, and alcohol, followed by the disciplinary action such as immediate termination from employment will be taken on individuals who infringe or violation of this policy. Immediate discharge will also applicable for employees who refuse to test, failure to provide specimen within reasonable time, and alteration of specimen. Last but not least, on the last paragraph, the company also emphasized on the confidentiality, where all information about drugs, alcohol, and substance use, such as test result and information of violation of this policy, will also be kept as confidential information. One of the items that didn't include in this drug and alcohol policy is grievance. Hence, my suggestion is that the company could review of this policy statement and add a grievance mechanism related criteria, and method of complaints to ensure transparency and given employers a proper channel to make complaints to the management in case of any false accusations were reported against themselves.
Now I will explain about the prevention of drug, alcohol, and substance abuse in the workplace. There are 10 strategies in the prevention program, which is identify, deal, testing, information, training and awareness program, trafficking drug at workplace, work-sponsored function, drug, alcohol and substance dependent, rehabilitation and counseling, infringement of policy and grievance. The first one is identify. In order to recognize employees who are impacted by drug, alcohol, or substance abuse, the company should create specific criteria such as anxiousness, vomiting, frequent absence, or poor work performance. Next is to deal with them. Procedure of handling employees who abuse drug, alcohol, or other substance at work should be established by the employer. The proper action should be taken according to the procedure. Next is testing. A formal policy for conducting drug or alcohol tests should be established by the employer. Urine testing and alcohol breath testing can be used for drug testing. Next is information, training, and awareness program. Set up an efficient communication system. All employees in the company should have access to information about drug, alcohol, and substance misuse according to the employer. Conduct induction programs for new employees. The employer may run a campaign to raise awareness at work. For trafficking drug at workplace, the employer is responsible for informing all employees and anybody else present at work that drug trafficking is illegal. Any drug trafficking activities should be prohibited by the employer, who should also report such action to the authorities. For work-sponsored function, alcohol use at company-sponsored events should not be permitted unless there are measures made to ensure that the employee is well enough to return to work or the drunk employee stay away from work and arrive home safely. For drug, alcohol, and substance dependent, employer should support employee in admitting that he is dependent on drug, alcohol, or other substances. The company should specify how to handle them. The employer must make sure that the procedure complies with all applicable law and agreement. For rehabilitation and counseling, the employer should urge his staff to seek professional counseling for any issues involving drug, alcohol, or other substances. Employer should permit employee to participate in recovery program once employee is detected using drug. For infringement of policy, the employer should outline procedures dealing with infringement of policy on drug, alcohol, and substance abuse. And last, for grievance, specify how complaints about the application of their drug, alcohol, and substance misuse policy will be handled. When filing and investigating complaint, the employer should take precaution to shield victims from additional humiliation. The grievance process should include a step-by-step method for filing and handling grievances, with appropriate time constraints for each stage and inquiry process.
Hello, my name is Esther Amaroni and I will present the part for implementation. So in general, an employer should ensure that the policy and the program are implemented effectively, and the following elements need to be considered during implementation of the policy. First is organization, which the responsible person nominated under subsection 5.2.1 should assist the employer in implementation of the policy and program, and the identifier of the responsible person should be made known to all employees. And the duties of the responsible person should include but not necessarily limited to coordinating and monitoring the implementation of the program, to be resource person for education and training and any other workplace program related to drug, alcohol, and substance, to be workplace counselor if he or she is substantively qualified, maintaining confidentiality of the identity of drug positive and drug, alcohol, or substance dependence, evaluate and report the progress of implementation to the employer on a regular basis. And for evaluate and report, the employer should encourage the community formed under subsection 5.2 to assist the employer in implementing the policy and program. And in order for the community to perform its duties, members of the community should be trained. Second is evaluations and review. An employer should evaluate and review the policy and when it is necessary. And second, an employer should provide a mechanism including a time frame and criteria for the evaluation and review of the policy. And the last is confidentiality, which employer should outline the procedures dealing with confidential information related to drug, alcohol, and substance abuse issues. The examples of confidential information are test results and identity of a person who voluntarily are not drug dependent. So what are the benefits? An employer should realize that developing and implementing policy and program on prevention of drug, alcohol, or substance abuse will help in first reducing accidents. Drug and alcohol environment can negatively affect an employee's judgment and motor skills, which can result in near misses, injuries, and property damage. Second is absenteeism, and third is high staff turnover, which researchers have found that measures of alcohol and other drug use are related to a number of problematic work behaviors, notably absenteeism, and perhaps accident rates and performance levels. And the fourth is criminal involvement amongst his employees, which drug exposure alters social behaviors, whereas drug withdrawal decreases sociability and enhances migration. So by developing and implementing policy and program, it will enhance the quality of products and services produced as well as will increase productivity. And the fifth is employer should realize that his workplace forms an integral part of the local community and as such it has a significant role to play in wider struggles to eradicate drug, alcohol, and substance abuse in the community. So what are the conclusions? So the focus is more on prevention, which prevention is understood as any activity designed to avoid substance abuse and reduce its health and social consequences. And it requires full commitment and concerted efforts by the employers and employees because they play an important role in the industry, and they emphasize the benefits to the employees, which will provide a high quality of work, and for employees, which they might not lose their job and will not face any regret, and preventing addiction to drugs, also alcohol. And the last is participation and awareness among employers and employees plays a key part in these workplace alcohol and drug programs. That's all from us. Thank you.